Hey, what is going on guys, Fusion here, and welcome to the Telltale The Walking Dead TV adaptation series. This is Season 4, Episode 16, which is titled, No Going Back. So, essentially, obviously a lot of stuff happened in the last episode. I think the biggest thing was obviously Sarah dying, which was really upsetting, and that really messed up Clem and such, and then Clem and Lilly and Kenny were burying Sarah's body as the other group actually reached Wellington finally. They're in Wellington. And Luke and Jane are also out there in their vehicle just driving around away from the herd that they were bringing away from the school. So that's basically where everyone is right now. So let's hop into the episode. Actually, before I start the episode, I would like to quickly say that after this episode, I'm going to take like a 3-week break from uploading these. Maybe not 3 weeks, but the next upload for this is going to be July 24th. So essentially, today's July 7th, therefore July 24th will be the next episode, which would be Season 5. The reason why I'm doing this is because, well, A, I kind of would like a break. B, I want to be able to post these more regularly, but I need some time to catch up with it in order to do that. So I'd like to spend some of this time to catch up with writing some of it, also, editing, recording it, and all that. And July 29th, the importance of that day is that it would be a 1-year anniversary of when I uploaded the first episode of the first season for this series. So it'd be kind of cool to start Season 5 on exactly a year later from starting it, which would be kind of cool. But it's not too long of a break. It will be good for everyone, I think, because I'll be able to get these out a little bit more frequently because I'll try to start working on them more during this little break. So I'm not really taking a break. It's more so a break for you guys, not really for me. I'll probably still be working on them a lot anyways, but it'll allow me to not have to worry about these as much because I feel like I'm rushing them out every now and then, and I don't want to rush them out. I'd like to do them as much as I could, but do it in an effective fashion, I guess. But that's all I wanted to say real quick, so let's get into the episode. So the episode begins with Victor and the New Frontier showing up to Lester's farm and seeing the destruction. Roughly 100 New Frontier soldiers there as Victor finds Lester still sobbing about his community being destroyed and a lot of his people dying. Victor asks what the fuck happened, and Lester explains to him about the whole retribution thing, coming here and doing it. Victor uses his walkie-talkie and he says that we must do it soon. And the other New Frontier groups, just as large as the one we just saw, are all posted up outside of different retribution bases, including the one from last episode, the one at the warehouse. And Victor says, wait till we get to our post and then we hit about an hour from now, which basically means they're planning on a massive attack all at once at all retribution bases, with basically majority of the New Frontier soldiers in being involved. Back with the group at the school, Kenny holding AJ, Clem, and Lilly go back inside of the school and hold up in a chemistry lab, and this chemistry lab has like another classroom attached to it, and you can kind of see into that other classroom through a window, so it's kind of like one of those type of classrooms. And Clement makes sure that the doors are locked tight, and she even puts some desks in front of them just to make sure. But the doors leading to the other classroom aren't really locked up all that well. I mean, they're locked, but they're not. She didn't put like desks in front of it or anything. And there's also windows looking outside so you can see outdoors. And the group relax for a bit to catch their breath inside of this chemistry lab, and they're still upset over the loss of Sarah. The snow stops falling outside as Kenny says they should probably leave soon, and Lily says the walkers are still out there and they need to wait for Luke and Jane to come back. Clem is still in shock over what happened last episode, and she keeps saying it's her fault, but Kenny tells her to stop that shit. Kenny keeps looking at Lily as he can't stop thinking about what she said before. Luke and Jane loop around to head back to the school, but they come across a truck headed down the road, so they quickly turn the opposite way to avoid any conflict with whoever is in that truck. The truck clearly sees their group, but they just keep driving down the road. And Jane questions if it's the New Frontier or maybe the Retribution, but Luke says he really doesn't want to find out. But they are headed in the direction of the school, so they kind of should know what's going on with that. Back in Wellington, the community is formally introduced to everyone, pretty much, as Thomas shows them around the houses, apartments, the pool, the town hall, everything else inside. Omid and Krista just sit together in Krista's apartment room. She's still in shock that he's alive. They just hold each other so close. Omid mentions that he was with Clementine for a bit and that she's out there. He even says Jordan and also Kenny are out there. Krista is amazed by this as she just hugs Omid. She's pretty much speechless. Thomas lets everyone know that he's not going to sugarcoat this and say that they've obviously been dealing with some big issues outside of the community, but he's assured that the retribution can take care of it. Daniels was with the group that whole time, but he tells everyone that he needs to head back to his group. They all thank him for everything. Aaron especially thanks him. Nick goes up to Daniels as he's leaving to talk with him alone, and Nick asks him if it's true that their group are taking care of it, and he says that he heard that they are losing the battle. Daniels says we can handle it as he walks off. He doesn't really talk too much about it though. Just as that scene plays out, we see Victor calling for the attack to be set in motion, and 5 of the Retribution outposts are all hit at once with the New Frontier using heavy weaponry and explosives. So basically, this is a big montage scene that plays out with all 5 of these communities being attacked by all these New Frontier members. It's insanity, right? Even the outpost at the warehouse from last episode gets attacked. Daniels is driving back as he hears people yelling out for backup on the walkie-talkie, and there's just full-on destruction. It's clear that the New Frontier is winning these battles. They are killing majority of the Retribution soldiers in these battles. Only a few New Frontier soldiers die at all. It's about 100 of New Frontier soldiers at each base, with maybe 40 to 50 at Retribution at each base. They are vastly outnumbered and outgunned. Daniels returns to his base to see the mayhem unfolding, and he quickly turns his vehicle around after being shot at by a few soldiers. So essentially the scene plays out just like an action-packed scene where there's just people being shot and killed, and it's not, no one we really know personally, but you can see the destruction, you can see the terror on these people's faces because they were not expecting this attack all at once to be so well organized. And there's explosions, they're destroying the entirety of the bases. There's the one at the outpost, or there's like a couple different outposts. There's the one at the warehouse, and then there's a couple other outposts that are all around Pennsylvania, and even one in like New Jersey. They're pretty scattered around the state. They're not all within the same location, and they hit them hard. Back in Wellington, Vince and Shell get a look into the apartment that they will be sharing together. Aaron and Roman share a place. Sandy gets a place. Tripp is obviously being taken care of in the infirmary with Steven's in there, and Dave's also in there as well, being taken care of obviously by Steven. Nick is still really sketched out by this community as he walks around observing the place and the people. Everyone seems too happy and not worried about the horrors outside. He's confronted by a pretty looking brunette woman. She's like about 30 years old, named Jill. She introduces herself and asks if he's new here. Nick says yeah, and he was just brought in a few hours ago. Jill says if he needs anything, she'll always be around. She says she's basically the community manager of this place. Thomas leads the whole place, but she's mainly for domestic things. She can probably handle it. He's usually too busy working with other communities and such. And Nick says, all right, as he just walks away, still a bit sketched out. Luke and Jane slowly drive in the direction that the truck went in, but they are cut off from a massive herd of walkers, stopping them from returning to the school. They are forced to turn their vehicle around. Now back at the school, Kenny asks Lilly once again about Sarita. Clem is just sitting in the back of the classroom holding AJ, and Lilly asks what he's talking about. Kenny says she clearly had something to do with it. You kept writing it off whenever I bring it up, and Lilly gets really worried as Kenny just asks again what happened to Sarita. Lilly just says it straight up. She doesn't even sugarcoat it. She just admits it, that she killed her. And Kenny is taken aback by that. He wasn't expecting her to say that. He thought maybe she saw it happen or something, but not that she did it herself. And Kenny just says, what? Lilly says it wasn't Carver, it was her. She's really upset in saying it, obviously, and Clementine is very alerted by this conversation. Kenny just takes a deep breath and says, why? As he starts coming closer to Lilly. Lilly says it was fast. She didn't know whether or not she was aiming a gun at her or what, but she did it and she shot her. She says she's really sorry. But Kenny, we think he's just going to calm down for a second and walk away, but he snaps, punches Lilly in the face, throws her into the wall, and Clem freaks out and tries to set down AJ so he can stop the fight. Lilly grabs this little glass beaker from the side of the, it's on a table next to her. She grabs it and smashes it in Kenny's face. Remember, Lilly lost an arm, so she's at a complete disadvantage in this fight here. They get into a bit of a tussle on the ground as Clementine tries to break it up as she's kind of pushed away from Kenny, and Kenny just keeps punching Lilly in the face as he yells, "You killed her." Lilly tries to say sorry again as Clem puts Kenny's own Python revolver to his own head. Clem says, "Stop it," now. Clem is out of ammo and all her other guns, obviously, from the last episode. Lilly doesn't have any bullets either. There's just 2 bullets left in Kenny's revolver, the one that Clem is holding now. She grabbed it from him. It was on the floor, and she's just holding it right at Kenny. Kenny looks at his bloodied up hands, looks over in the mirror on the wall, and he sees himself, and he looks like a straight up psychopath. And then he just realizes what he's doing. Lilly tries to get up, but then she looks outside and she sees Rais and his 2 men standing right outside of the door, and they hold up their weapons and shoot at the group as Lilly jumps in front of Kenny by pushing him out of the way, and Lilly is shot with 2 handgun shots in the stomach and in the upper chest area as she falls to the ground, and Kenny and Clem hit the deck. Rais and the other 2 guys were in the truck that passed by Luke and Jane before, and they are outside of this chemistry classroom on the outside, like outside of the entire building. Kenny is behind cover as Clem has his revolver. Clem also sees AJ on the floor. Lilly is just laying there. She's still alive, but Kenny quickly crawls over to pull her to cover, and he holds her to make sure she's still alive and keeps pressure on her bullet wounds. He says he's sorry to her, but Clem just peeks up quickly, doesn't see the guys anymore, gets right back down. But one of them comes through the classroom that connects to the chemistry lab room that they are in, like the one that I was saying, like there's another classroom connect to the room and you can see through it with the mirror. He bashes through that door because it was locked. He bashed right through it, though. It wasn't too hard for him to get through. And basically both of them come through that door, connecting to the other room, and they start shooting at the group through the windows connecting the 2 rooms. There's a door there as well, but they're not going through it. They're just shooting through the windows, shooting at the group, but they're behind cover, so they're okay. Rais is nowhere to be seen, though. He's not there in that classroom. He's somewhere else, so the group are thinking, like, maybe he's going to try to flank or something. I don't know. Clem slides the revolver over to Kenny, knowing that he's clearly a better shot than her. So Kenny picks up his revolver and then jumps out of cover quickly, just as one of the guys peeks over their head through the window, and then Kenny fires his shot into the dude's head, killing him. Perfect shot. Amazing, right? There's other guy there, though, and he's left, but he runs out of ammo, but the group doesn't really know that. Clem quickly just grabs AJ as he's obviously laying on the floor, kind of close to her, but she has to kind of get out of cover real quick to grab him, but she gets him, holds him close. Kenny gets to cover, obviously, but he moves up closer to try to get to that window, as the guy who ran out of ammo decides to run off, and Kenny notices this as he quickly gets up and shoots his last bullet into the guy's back, and the guy falls over onto the ground in the classroom. Kenny tells Clem to keep an eye out because there's the one guy left. Kenny looks around the 2 guys' guns, but he doesn't find any ammo. He searches the guy's body in the next room, but the dude isn't dead yet. He gets up, fights back against Kenny, but Kenny just throws the guy into the wall and grabs a piece of broken glass and stabs it right into the guy's throat, takes it out, and then stabs him in the head, or like in the eye, because the glass isn't going to go through his head. It's like through his eye, and just kind of lets it out. The dude falls to the ground, pretty much dead. And Kenny returns to the others and says that they have to get out of here now. So Kenny helps Lilly up as they exit the chemistry lab and start walking down the hallways. Clementine is keeping an eye out for anyone as she holds AJ. They make it down the hallway as they are stopped in their tracks when they see Rais down the hallway holding 2 of his katanas. He looks angry. Kenny has Lilly sat down as he pulls out his machete and tells Clement to get Lilly and AJ and yourself out of here. He says he'll handle Rais. Clem tells him to just run with them, but Kenny says we can't outrun him, not unless someone's holding him back. He says he'll be the one to hold him back. He moves up towards Rais, and Clementine obviously doesn't want him to do it, but she doesn't know what the fuck to do right now because she's got to hold AJ. Lily's there, really injured. It's a terrible situation. Kenny's just slowly moving towards Rais, as Rais is like swinging his katanas around, and he drags them across the 2 hallway walls against the school lockers. And then he just rushes at Kenny as Kenny blocks with his machete, and they get into a full-on sword fight. Kenny using a machete, Rais using his 2 katanas. He's just swinging at each other. It's crazy. Clementine has no idea what to do. Kenny's getting his ass kicked. Rais is basically toying with him at this point. He's slicing up Kenny's legs, cutting him all over his body. Not enough to kill him, but he's still slicing him up, and it's giving him a lot of cuts around his body. It's pretty bad. And Rice then just takes one of his katanas and just stabs it straight through Kenny's hip and pulls his katana out, and Clem screams, "No!" She thinks that it's worse than it is, but it was just in his hip. He's not, dead, but it looks a lot worse than it is, but it's still enough to get him to sit out for the count for a little bit. He's injured pretty bad. He falls to the ground. He's bleeding out from his hip. It's enough to kill him, but it's, as long as he gets it patched up eventually, but he's bleeding out pretty bad, essentially. So Rice gets ready to finish Kenny off with his katana. He's getting ready to just stab him, but Lilly yells out to Rice and calls him a coward. She's like trying to get up, and she's all still injured, obviously. So Lily's like mocking him, saying, "Are you really going to kill an old man, a woman, a girl, and a baby?" Lilly says, "Let's make it a fair fight, you coward." So Rice laughs as he decides to just drop his katanas on the ground, and he raises his fists towards Lilly and tells him to bring it. He wants a fist fight. He would rather a fist fight because he knows he can do just as much damage. Clem starts to set AJ on the floor as she decides to put him into a locker just to keep him safe in case anything happens to them, just in case from walkers or anything. Clem pulls out her pocket knife and gives it to Lilly as Clem finds a pencil on the floor and holds it up ready to fight. And Rice just laughs again. He's like, what are these, bitches trying to do, basically? As Lilly and Clem run at him and they're angry, Rice dodges their attack and kicks Clem into the wall and then grabs Lilly by the throat after knocking the knife out of her hand, and he throws Lilly to the wall and drags her across it and then tosses her on the ground, when Clem then jumps onto Rice's back and uses her nails to cut through his face. But Rice just grabs Clem and body slams her onto the ground. Kenny's still alive, but he isn't able to move all that well, so he's not really doing much. All three of them are exhausted and injured badly, and Rice then goes up to Lilly and grabs her by the head as Clem and Kenny are watching. Clem tries to get up, but she just collapses on the floor. Kenny tells him to please stop it, as Rice takes Lily's head and slams it hard against the floor, breaking Lily's nose, and blood is just pouring out of her nose. And he goes again, slams her head into the floor. Clem is just begging. There's like this really eerie music going on, like this, like it's just like, it's insane, right? Shit's going down pretty much, that kind of music where you don't know what the hell is about to happen. Similar to this scene from episode 11 when Kenny and Clem were killing the people. Music like that where it's really building up and it's just intense, right? And this time, after he hits her in the face again on the floor, her face is all kinds of screwed up. And then he lifts her by her hair and slams her into the wall, and Clem is just begging for him to stop as she starts to get up, but Rice just takes Lily's head again and then slams it in the wall, and then goes back and forth, slamming Lily's face, her entire head, into the wall about 5 times, indenting Lily's face like a crushed watermelon. And after the last slam, Lily's head is crushed, and she's dead. Rice drops her lifeless body to the floor, and Rice goes over to grab his katanas to finish the other two off, as Kenny just kicks his legs. He just gets a rush of energy and kicks his legs, but that doesn't do much because Rice just gets up and grabs Kenny by the throat, just as Clem comes running with her knife from the floor and jumps onto Rice, screaming as she goes for a stab, but Rice blocks it and then throws Clem to the ground. Clem crawls away as Rice gets a hold of himself, and he yells at her and calls her a dumb little girl. And then Clem says, "I'm not just a little girl, I'm your worst fucking nightmare," as she runs at him and then does like a slide under his punch and dodges it like miraculously. And then she grabs the knife again, swings at him again, but Rice grabs her arm and then bangs her against the wall and keeps her arm held against the wall, and then with his other arm chokes Clem against the wall. Clem still has one arm free though, and this one arm she's kind of using to try to stop his choking, but she realizes what she can do and she completely outsmarts him, drops the knife in her one hand and picks it up while it's falling with her other hand, and then uses it to stab him in the stomach as he pushes Clem off because he got stabbed in the stomach, so it kind of hurts, and he doesn't really kill. It doesn't kill him just yet, but it stabs him. It kind of injures him, but he pulls out the knife, throws it to the ground. The katanas are still on the floor, by the way. So Rice grabs one of them, but Kenny quickly yells out to Clem as she's really close, and he slides the other one to Rice as Rice is about to just swing at Clem to kill her. But Clem grabs the katana first, the one that's on the floor. He's holding another one, obviously. She grabs it and just drives it right into Rice's chest and pushes him up against the wall. And Rice is still trying to swing his katana as he does slice up Clem's leg a couple times and her arm as well, but she's okay for the most part. She then pulls the katana out of his chest and then drives it straight through the back of Rice's skull while screaming. And then she drops to the floor from exhaustion as Rice is dead. She looks over to Lily's dead body and she's quite upset over it as she goes to get AJ and then goes back to Kenny to help him up, but he can't get up. He tells Clem to just leave him here to die, but Clem says, "No, not you. I can't lose everyone like this." Kenny says the others are still out there. You can get to them, and Clem says she's not leaving him. Clem quickly runs over to the nurse's office nearby, finds a wheelchair to use for Kenny as she helps him on it and pushes him to the lobby outside of the main doors to the outside, obviously. And right when they get outside, they are confronted by over 100 New Frontier soldiers in their vehicles aiming guns at the front doors, and Victor walks out from the shadows. We get another scene in Wellington, and Thomas hears the news from Edith that all the retribution outposts were just hit badly. Thomas is practically shaking in fear. He knows what this means. Edith asks if we will tell the community, and Thomas tells her not to. He says we can't have them fear because fear will turn into chaos. He says, just wait. Maybe they'll come back. And Edith says they are saying that there's barely any survivors from the retribution, like at all. Back at the school, it's turning nighttime now. The sun's just setting and such. Kenny's just sitting there in the wheelchair with Clem holding AJ standing beside him, and Victor is there, and he asks them if they know who he is. So essentially, the New Frontier, they have just completed, or at least the group that's here right now, they have just finished destroying an outpost, killing majority of the people there from Retribution, obviously. And they now came by the school. We'll find out why they're here in a second, but Clem says that her friend needs help, and Victor says that isn't what he asked. Clem begs him to just help patch him up really quickly and they can capture them or whatever. Victor says he doesn't want to capture them. He says he was in contact with Rice, and Rice told him that he was here fighting the people who killed his entire group. And Victor says he has trouble believing that an old man in a wheelchair and a little girl and a baby killed over 30 Russian soldiers. Clem doesn't answer him from this, but Victor says those soldiers worked for him, so that loss is a big burden on me. Victor says he isn't here for punishment. He says their group just took care of the biggest issue we had facing us. He questions where they are headed, and Victor says he assumes the Holy Trinity. He says he'll take them there if they want. He just needs to speak with the leaders of those communities anyways, because he needs to tell them what just happened. He needs to tell them the new laws going forward. And Clem doesn't really understand what he's talking about, but she just says that her friend needs help, and Victor says he doesn't care. He takes a good look at AJ, but he continues on with his conversation and saying that he just wants to let them know they own this land now, so either they become a part of those communities or they'll be asked to leave. Clem says they'll go to Wellington because she knows that Kenny needs the help. Victor questions if they have any other friends around here they should know about, and we get a shot of Luke and Jane shown hiding in the backyard of a house nearby on the porch, watching this all go down in the school parking lot. Victor says he can take them to Wellington. It's not a problem. But he says he just needs one favor. He says his wife, Rosanna, she can't have a baby. We just can't have a baby together. We're incompatible. He says that he's always wanted one with her, and the fact that he can't provide just hurts him. Victor says there's no adoption clinics going around anymore, so he takes a good look at AJ again, and he says, I'm going to take this beautiful child. And Clem says no right away, as she holds AJ close, but Victor quickly responds to this by pulling out his M1911 pistol and shoots Kenny in the leg. And Kenny's just screaming in pain. He then puts the gun to Kenny's head. Kenny's just still screaming from this pain, obviously, and he tells Kenny to stay quiet or the dead will come. And just as he says this, a walker actually approaches them, and Victor goes over and shoots the walker in the head with his pistol, and he puts it back to Kenny's head, and he tells Clem that either she hands him the child or he shoots both of them and he takes the child anyways. Clem is really angry and says, "You're making a big mistake." Victor laughs and says, 10 seconds or else I'll do it. Clem is really pissed off, teary-eyed and such, but she gives him up after he counts down to 1. AJ starts crying as Victor is holding him now, and Clem is in tears from this. Victor asks what his name is, and Clem says, "Fuck you," as Victor comes over and kicks Kenny off of his wheelchair. He yells in Clem's face to never talk to him like that, and he asks again, "What is his name?" And Clem is just shaking in fear as she says AJ. Victor then calms down and says, "What a beautiful name." Victor tells the others to load them up as they drive off to head for Wellington, and Luke and Jane decide that they have to follow them behind. Back at Wellington, Vince, Shell, Sandy, Aaron, Roman, and Nick have food together, as well as Tripp finally comes out, able to walk again. And well, Sandy goes to hug him as he says he's still feeling all kinds of aches around his body. Omid and Krista are eating together. They're having like this just nice meal over by like this outdoor area that they have. And Edith on the gate is startled by Daniels driving up to the gates as he yells out that they attacked them. It's a fucking war zone out there. Edith says they were just told by another group of survivors from Retribution exactly what you're telling us now. Just as a new frontier rolls up to the gates of Wellington as Victor demands entry this moment. Daniels is hiding in the bushes because he knows they'll probably kill him because he's Retribution. And Edith calls for Thomas on the walkie-talkie quickly, but Thomas is shown to be in his room drinking himself to sleep, and he's not listening to the walkie-talkie go off. He's actually listening to some really decently loud classical music. Victor tells Edith to let them in or they'll start blowing shit up, so Edith just does it because she kind of has to, and all the trucks roll up into the gates, park all around the entry lot of this place. The community members all come by after seeing what's going on. The community themselves, they aren't well armed. They have some handguns and shotguns, but all the big guns belong to the Retribution, so they're not highly loaded like Alexandria from The Walking Dead. They don't have assault rifles and such. They don't really have that much here. So it's pretty, they don't got much, right? One civilian pulls out a handgun, though, and he tells them to all leave now, and Jill calms him down and tells him to put the gun down, and he does because Victor obviously would not be too happy if he did anything. The New Frontier soldiers throw out Clem and Kenny from the van onto the ground as they crawl over back to the people. Steven helps Kenny up as Clem is yelling at him to help Kenny, and some of the civilians are like, "Who the hell are these people?" But clearly they realize that some of the people there know them, and Clem is really shocked to see Krista, and they share a nice hug, and they're just happy that they're with each other, but obviously they got bigger problems going on right now. Victor says he's just come to let them all know how things will run from now on. He says they destroyed the Retribution for good, so now they own the Holy Trinity. He says we will not attack you people. We have no intentions to. But under our rule, you follow our commands and laws. What we say goes. He says together we will prosper for a better tomorrow. He says any and all Retribution soldiers will be killed on sight, so if you have any here or any shows up here, I advise you to turn them in immediately. He says their ideals were destroying the rebuilding of this world. We see Daniel is still hiding out in the bushes, obviously. He says he will now be telling the other communities about this wonderful news. So, good day and goodbye, everyone. And the trucks leave as Edith waits for them to be gone so Daniels can quickly scurry into the place before she closes it up. Everyone is terrified as they are all asking where Thomas is. Daniels come over to the group and he just tells them that it's all true. The Retribution was mostly taken out. They weren't bluffing. Everyone talks about just packing up and leaving, but many longtime civilians say, fuck that. There's no going back. We ain't not going back out on the road. We can't do that. Aaron decides to speak up and says that their group have been, they're new here, of course, but they spent a year or two trying to get here. We did it so we can see civilization being restored and we can be a part of it. He says we didn't just work for all of that just to give up on everything. And you all didn't work for all of that just to give up for it. He says his eyes were widened while walking through those gates. He saw the children playing and the people talking about life, not about survival or the dead. Aaron says we must do whatever it takes to keep this going. A man speaks up and says the Retribution was the only thing keeping us supplied well and safe, and now that's gone. And Aaron says, you are forgetting a big thing. Now you have us. Aaron says we've been out there. We've seen all sorts of shit. We've fought groups pretty big in the hundreds almost, and we won with like 30 of us. Jill asks if you are saying we should fight them. Aaron says no, but we show them that if they did fight us, we would win. But people are not about that. They're saying we can't fight them. We could probably Some people are honestly saying we could probably just deal with it. We don't need to leave. As long as they're not, causing any massive issues, maybe they'll be better than Retribution. Maybe they'll be safer. But other people are saying no. They just killed the Retribution. They're clearly not good people. They're clearly killers. But people argue Retribution were killers as well. It's a whole big argument that goes back and forth between all these people, and it's a lot of shit. Edith comes over, though, or she calls out from the distance that asking the new people from the group if they know a Luke and a Jane, and because Luke and Jane have showed up to the community, and she lets them in, and they basically reunite. Nick is mainly happy to see them. The civilians that were there kind of not talking with the main group anymore. They kind of like backed off, but we have a nice conversation between the original group and such, and Nick is there, and Luke asks, what happened with Clem and Kenny, because they're not there, but we see Clem come back from the infirmary with Kenny because she was just there helping him out. And Luke asks where Sarah and Lilly are, and Clem breaks the news to everyone about what happened with them. And Luke is really pissed off about it and upset about Sarah more than anyone at this point. Shell asks about Bonnie, Jordan, and Marla, and Jane says Marla is dead, but Jordan and Bonnie are still out there somewhere. Roman says Kyle is dead, and later on, Clem visits Kenny in the infirmary. Kenny is upset and blames himself for Lily's death, but Clem says it wasn't his fault. Kenny promises Clem that he's going to get better from here on out. He has to. Clem says that she's going to get back AJ, and Kenny says you can't do it alone. Kenny says we will together. Then we get an after credits scene, and in this scene, we are shown the lake house again, back from, the previous episodes, and a van passes by it and stops in front of it to go check it out. And out of the car comes Javier, Kate, Gabe, and Mariana, however you want to pronounce it. Javier says to the others to stay in the car and that he'll check this place out. And boom, end of the episode. So obviously that after credits scene was literally just to introduce us to those characters really quickly, just kind of tease them. We'll see them again in season 5, of course, and they're going to connect stories in some way, and we'll see everything with that and such. I'm really excited to do season 5, but the problem is, like I said, I wanted to wait till July 29th in order to do that. I don't want to rush it out to you guys. So in terms of characters left, we have in Wellington, Kenny, Clem, Luke, Jane, Nick, Omid, Krista, Aaron, Tripp, Sandy, Roman, Vince, Shell, Dave, Edith, Thomas, Jill, Daniel, Steven. Pretty much all the characters that are named and kind of, popular or whatever. Actually, those are all the named ones, I believe. AJ obviously is still out there. He's just not with the communities. He's with Victor, and we'll see what happens with that. We have Eleanor, which she returned to Prescott. We didn't see that happen, but she returned to Prescott, so she's in Prescott. Obviously, Victor is a character. Lester's out there. And then in terms of being unknown, Bonnie, Jordan, Arvo, and Ivy are all unknown. So there's other characters probably there as well that are also technically unknown, but they're not important to me. I'm just calling like the main characters here. But in terms of named characters, these are about all of them that are there, obviously. So yeah, hopefully you all enjoy the video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and I'll see you all in my next one. Peace out.